great feminization of our society over the past 60 years has turned the modern West into that old Star Trek episode where they had a planet of women who kept men as second-class citizens. As a young guy, I thought that episode was ridiculous. Today, I don't think it went hard enough. Tonight, we're going to see physically abusive women, right on tape, being described by other people as needing help. Not the men they're hitting, the women doing the hitting. They're the ones who need the help. And we're going to talk about the degraded cuckoldry that liberal men are wallowing in while their wives girl boss all over them. Potpourri du Moquerie is back tonight too, now with even more references to late 70s sitcoms. And then we're going to take the show out with some unapologetic nostalgia. There are at least 5 things that I want back from the 20th century. So get your bib on and dig into some top shelf boomer bait. That is all tonight on Disaffected, the show that talks about politics, culture, and relationships through a dark psychological lens. It's March 22nd, 2026. I'm Josh Slocum. Out of the hundreds of articles that I've written on Disaffected Substack for the past 4 years, one stands out. It got more views, more reposts, and more comments, and more subscriptions than any other. That surprised me, because when I wrote it, I figured that that would be the article that got me re-canceled with a new set of friends, and that it would lose me more subscribers than any other article. The opposite turned out to be true. That seems to indicate that more Americans are ready to have a conversation than they were a few years ago. The article was called "When the Women in Your Family Go Nuts." I've heard from friends, from consulting and counseling clients, and from my observations reading online, I'm hearing from a number of men whose family members, mainly, but not exclusively, their mothers and wives, have become impossible to bear. I'm reading a little excerpt from the article. Yes, and it's about woke, and it's about Trump and the re-election of Trump. Or it's about abortion, or it's about LGBTQ, or it's about feeding migrants, or about any of the other bugbears that obsess today's leftists. These men that I'm hearing from, whose stories that I'm reading, they're gay and they're straight. They're young to middle-aged, they're married and they're single. Generally, they're centrist to conservatives, but some of them are more on the left. And the behavior they're reporting is not only rationally unhinged, but it's personally rude, provocative, and often downright galling. And the common denominator is a mother or another female family member exploding in rage, sarcasm, or manipulative tears toward men in their family who are not woke and won't agree with them on everything. These are men who often voted for Trump, or they're merely men who don't hate Trump as much as their wife wants them to hate Trump. And I did a version of this article here on Disaffected some time ago. Don't ask me when, after 266 shows. That is the number for this week. I don't even remember what I talked about last week. This is still going on because it's a broad social trend. It's not a flash in the pan. It's not temporary. And it's not a 2-day social media obsession. This is our world that we live in now. It's going to take a long time to get rid of it if we can. The elevation of women's social and political status since the 1960s passed parity decades ago. Women are now on political and moral pedestals. They are untouchable. They are uncriticizable in respectable mainstream company. This is only just beginning to crack, just beginning in 2026. I've got to say, I don't think the crack is going to widen much more. Because humans seem to be hardwired to excuse women for childish, hysterical, or wicked behavior. I suspect we've just got a temporary window where some of us can say this a little bit more than we could before. Maybe I'll turn out to be wrong. At the same time this is happening, men's status has been degraded to the point of farce. Men are blamed for literally everything women don't like, everything that women do that turns out badly, everything women believe that they're entitled to that they're not getting. There hasn't been a sitcom, a television show, since the 1970s where the father figure was portrayed as competent, grown-up, or even human. Remember Ward Cleaver, the family man? Remember how his wife June relied on him to have hard talks with the boys, man to man, and he relied on her to bring the warm heart to the home? Well, that's been gone since Leave It to Beaver went off the air. We were supposed to see Archie Bunker on All in the Family as the arch racist, misogynist villain, even though he was about 75% right. Today, most middle-class families that we get a peek at are living in exactly the same dynamic that Archie was living in, but much worse. His wife Edith may have been ditzy, but she wasn't a screeching harridan. She loved her family and she worked her ass off to make them a stable, nice home. I've always felt affection for the character of Edith Bunker because she reminded me in many ways of my own grandmother, who was that age and whose name was also Edith. My grandmother even looked like Jean Stapleton, the actress. Modern men, though, they're living with Glory and Michael Stivic, and their version of Edith is a fire-breathing termagant who may as well literally keep his testicles in a glass jar. Here's another couple of excerpts from my Substack article. Quote, another friend's been telling me about how his elderly mother spends all day, every day, with CNN and MSNBC on. She refuses to read or watch any other sources. Yes, I mean that she tells her son that she will not read or listen to any contradictory information or source he provides. Even when he tells her that what the TV is saying to her is factually untrue, that the TV is misleading her, that he's not criticizing her, but he's only trying to alert her that her TV friends are treating her badly, she will not listen. She will start screaming, though. This is a woman that I've met. This is a woman whose home I have stayed in the past. And she was the kind of mom that everyone loves. She was sweet and smart. She was extremely hospitable. Just the kind of mom that you want to have Sunday brunch with. I've never even heard her raise her voice. But my friend told me about a time in the car the other day with his mother during such an exchange, and she started yelling, I don't fucking care, when my friend tried to point out that a media accusation against Donald Trump was demonstrably false, and it was documented to be false. So she screamed that out, and then she affirmed that she approved of the harsh and unbalanced punishment of people on the political right, and that she would not want to see her own side punished for the same behavior. Just came right out with it. My friend wondered aloud for the first time if his mother actually has a cluster B personality disorder. He has described her as becoming, quote, absolutely unhinged. That's a word I'm hearing from many men about their mothers, their sisters, and their wives. So this brings us, let's get back to today. This brings us to a startling and perhaps unplanned bit of honesty from a modern liberal American man in Hollywood. He is actor Jerry O'Connell. You remember him from his role as the fat kid in the 80s classic movie Stand By Me. Here's a then and now. I think he actually grew up to be a really good-looking man. In his adult career, Jerry O'Connell is best known for his role in the show Sliders, and he's been in some other things. Well, he appeared on Bill Maher's podcast recently, and the short clip that we're going to show you recapitulates a story that I have heard from countless men, especially among my coaching and consulting clients. Jerry O'Connell is a prisoner in his own family. He's not allowed to have opinions that the women don't like, and his wife treats him like shit. So do his daughters. Let's roll this.
I'm going to tell you about a bit of, and I say this, will I stay married? Blow it over here. My,
Sounds like you're going to blow it over here.
the night of the election, this third one,
Yeah.
third election. Everyone knows what I'm talking about here.
He can't even say the word Trump.
I was watching late at night the returns, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't think Trump was going to win. I live in California. I didn't think he was going to win. From what I was hearing,
I didn't either.
I think he was going to win.
No,
this is where I live, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said something along the lines of like, there was no planning. This is what they get. There should have been a primary. I said something along those lines, you know? Like I was just spitballing ideas as to, it was a shock, you know? My wife and daughters, without saying anything, became physical with me. They were filled with rage. So if I am being careful with you in how I say things, yes, I live in California. I live with not one, not two, but 3 people who, if I made any kind of joke, they would, they'd become very angry with me. You know,
Well,
so
I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but I couldn't live that way. I would, whatever household or whatever situation I'm in, I say what I truly think. And if it makes you angry, I'm sorry. We'll have to work that out.
well, it makes.
But I am not going to tuck my tail between my legs and just shut the fuck up. This is what you were dealing with when you were a child. Just sit there and don't say anything.
Yeah, but-
Sit on your hands. Well, what happened to Rob Reiner? More of that, Jerry. More of that.
Yeah.
Where's Rob Reiner's ghost when you need him to be telling you more of that?
Yeah.
This is what you dealt with as a child. That's the thesis of this show. As in the home, so in society. This is cluster B. This is domestic abuse. Look at him. Listen to his tone of voice. He is scared. He's genuinely frightened. He's terrified of his wife and daughter. They started beating on him. Thank God Bill Maher said what he said, but Jerry O'Connell's too far gone. Since this happened, he's given statements. It's the last podcast he's ever doing. He can't do anything right. He's in trouble with everybody. I mean, he is a beaten down man. He didn't learn his lesson from this. This was not the wake-up call that it should have been for him. Didn't work. Says, I live in California. It was a shock. Jerry, that ought to tell you something. You don't live in reality. You live in California. If you were actually shocked by Trump's election, no insult to you meant at all, sir. Just plainly descriptive. This has been true of me too. You are completely disconnected from reality. You are not getting any accurate information. You're not. You're living in a fantasy land called California. And Jerry, you're doing this to yourself. You have behaved as a pathetic gelding, clearly for the entirety of your marriage. You're still doing it. You're a middle-aged man sweating with a hitching voice on camera, afraid to admit that you disagreed just a little tiny bit with your wife and daughters. They treat you this way, Jerry, because they don't respect you, and they don't respect you because you're not worthy of respect. You're not a man, you're a pussy. You don't carry yourself as a grown man. You have done this to yourself. You don't have to stay this way. I used to be a man like this. It's not that I'm not above you. I was this man, but it is you doing this. You are being a pussy. Only you can change. Millions of other American men have done this to themselves. Jerry doesn't have to keep doing this. Men don't have to keep doing this, but if they want something different, they're going to have to be brave enough to make their women angry and then ignore them or laugh at them and tell them to shut the fuck up. They're going to have to stop quaking at the thought of Caitlin, Amber, Ashley, Lynn getting angry. This is what I mean when I've said on this show so many times that men have to return to telling women no and shut up. No, you may not act that way. No, you sure as shit can't hit me, bitch. No, I'm not going to be quiet. You need to stop henpecking me. No, I'm not going to buy you everything and also give you my balls and also vote the way you tell me to and then not talk about it. That's no. No, I'm not going to respond to your manipulative tears. No, I'm not going to stay married to you if necessary. And no, I'm not going to let you turn our daughters into the same cluster B bitch that you are. That's the real tragedy here. That phrase, though, men need to tell women no, upset some of my female friends. Why? Because women haven't been told no for so long, and they have been artificially privileged and protected from normal adult consequences to the point where they've become oversensitive. Women, you need exposure therapy, and I'm one of the men who's going to give it to you. You need to hear repeatedly, no, You're not getting an apology. No. And you're going to hear, shut up. This isn't your business, and butt out. Over and over until it doesn't sting anymore. Until you can relearn how to handle normal pushback and responsibility like an actual grown-up lady. Women react, though, today, modern, and it is not just leftist women, it's conservative women too. That feminism is seeped into everything. They react to hearing that message as if I were saying men should be allowed to rape their wives, keep them pregnant, keep them chained to the stove, take away their car keys, and enslave them. That's stupid. It's hysterical, is what it is. It's stupid and it's hysterical. Yes, hysterical. This is why women need to hear no from men repeatedly, and especially when they tantrum until they develop a normal emotional skin again. There is no other way. There's no third way through this. When you stop giving consequences, and we've completely stopped. We don't even give verbal consequences. Jerry won't even indicate on his face that he's displeased. I guarantee you his face is being monitored by those harridans. I know this. I lived it. This is the result. You cannot negotiate. You can't ask. You're not asking for respect. You are demanding it. It's not a question. It's not a negotiation. It is an instruction. You will not treat me that way. You can't negotiate with people who are this far gone into narcissistic privilege. And I'm not even claiming that they're personality disordered, but this is narcissism. It's feminine narcissism. You just have to bring consequences. Something that surprised me is how many women agree with me on this. I wasn't predicting that. I can't put a number on it, but it's a lot more than I would have thought. There are scads of women who are just as tired of the bad female behavior and the flaunting of women's privilege as I am and as many men are. Well more than half of the women who watch this show and who communicate with me in some way, either by leaving comments, by sending me private messages or sending me emails, they tell me that they agree. They tell me that they don't have female friends anymore because they're unbearable. They tell me that they will never work for a woman boss again. They sound exactly as fed up in exactly the same way as men like me sound. But more than that, these women say, we women are more emotional and we are more neurotic. And we need men to help us contain our emotions, our big feelings. I want this in my husband. I want to be able to rely on a strong man who compliments me and who can rein in my emotions the way I compliment him, by reminding him that feelings have a place and that hearth and home and nurturing also matter in our family. I can't think of a more reasonable stance to take. They want a complementary partnership. So whatever you feel about this, there is such a thing as objective reality, and it's going to reassert itself. If you're a woman who can't hear this message without hearing, who thinks that men like me are misogynists, who are just waiting to legally enslave you and turn you into handmaids, you don't have any idea what the real dangers are that you actually face. Those real dangers are these. Buckle up. If men collectively get fed up enough with women's behavior, they will take your rights away. Because we can. We can. We're bigger and stronger than women. Men gave women the vote. Men can take it away. They can take away a lot more than the vote, too. And I think you know that. Go take a look at Pakistan. Can you believe I just said that in the NPR way? Pakistan. What the hell is wrong with me? Take a look at Iran. Take a look at Saudi Arabia. That's what happens when men decide what women are going to do and what they're not going to do. Is that what you want? That's a real patriarchy. I'm homosexual. If straight America gets much more fed up with the queers than they are today, then they're going to take my rights away. Because they can. Because they're stronger and more numerous than me. I'm not endorsing or disendorsing any of this. I'm simply describing reality. Straight America gets fed up, they will take my rights away. I can tantrum about that, but it won't change the power balance. This is not a dynamic exclusive to women or men. This is just political reality. It's human reality. If white people get fed up enough with black misbehavior, they're going to corral and control black people again. Because we can, if we want to. When every legal and cultural negotiation technique breaks down, the only thing left is force. And might will decide what's right. No matter how we feel about that. That's reality. It's not what I want to see because I'm not actually an irrational, insane, bigot, misogynist, internalized homophobe. And neither are the vast majority of other human beings. But if we exhaust nonviolent, non-force solutions, this is going to happen, and we're almost at the bottom of the bottle. All right, come back after the break. We're going to stick with my totally misogynist, anti-female tirade. We're going to take a look at the kinds of extreme behavior that women get away with while calling themselves victims, and while being able to be seen by other people as victims. Meat. That's what you're seeing on your screen, because Disaffected is sponsored by the makers of this fine, fine charcuterie, biltongusa.com, and the show is sponsored by it, and I personally am powered by it. I always eat biltong when I'm working on the show. My favorite snack is a plate of it with some good, sharp Vermont cheddar cheese. No carbohydrates, no insulin spike, no blood sugar crash. It is good for you, and it is the tastiest cured meat you have ever had. It's not ground up. It's not a Slim Jim. It's slices of high-quality beef that are cured in the South African way with vinegar and spices. And when you buy from biltongusa.com, you are supporting the kind of American immigrants that I think most of us would like to see. The Van Vuren family are South African. They came over legally the right way to the land of freedom and the land of opportunity because they didn't have it in South Africa anymore. And they've just built a new facility in Texas, and the stuff is still coming on schedule, and it still tastes great. So go to biltongusa.com, and don't forget to use promo code Josh. That lets them know that I sent you, and you get 10% off your order. Few things make me as angry as the societal approach to abusive women. We engage in a complete reversal of a responsibility, and nearly everyone participates in it. Liberals do it. Hard leftists do it. Centrists do it. Conservatives do it. Men and women do it equally. I'm going to give you details, but let me not bury the lead here. A woman named Taylor Frankie Paul stars on a narcissist's dream show called The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And she was slated, until recently, to do a season on the other narcissist dream show called The Bachelorette. Then, this past week, these shows discovered video of her screaming, hitting, and jumping on her husband, throwing metal chairs at him in front of her children, while claiming that she was the victim of domestic abuse. And if I'm not mistaken, this video, and we're gonna show it for you, it's from 2023. I think we've shown it on the show before. I know that I've seen it years ago, which means that other people could have known about this, and I think they did. Bottom line for me, this woman we're going to look at, she looks like a woman with borderline and sociopathic personality traits who has gotten away with it for a long time, as most women do. So what is the thing that most people do in this dynamic? They refuse to see abusive women as abusive. That is not a category that exists in their heads. They find excuses for abusive women that remove the responsibility from her and relocate that responsibility always onto a man, always a man, onto her father, the men she's dated in the past, onto patriarchy, onto misogyny, onto the stress of being a stay-at-home mom, or because she's not being validated and supported in her career. Anything, literally, any other person or system but the woman is responsible for the woman's behavior. She is never, ever, ever, ever responsible for her choice to hit, scream, lie, or falsely accuse. Now, some hearing this may be thinking, there he goes again exaggerating. It's just a few people who don't hold women responsible. Or they might be thinking, this isn't really true. It's just this guy's personal wounds from his mother and he's just projecting. No, I neither exaggerate nor am I inaccurately projecting and extrapolating on this issue. I am correct. But I am a Johnny-come-lately to the truth of this situation. Countless men, long before me, have tried to bring this to light for years in books, articles, and public talks when they're allowed to speak. I now join that club of men who broke out of the mental fog, saw the truth and say the truth, but they want to relegate us back to sad incel boy man troll status, women's favorite game, when they don't like being criticized. Because we have to protect the myth of the morally pure female. And we have to protect its inverse and complement, the essentially and intrinsically abusive male. We have to protect this at all costs. This is like what I did personally in my own life and in my own mind for decades. Society is protecting its image of the always safe, always loving, capital M mother. Facing the truth about how depraved mother can really be is too much for a lot of people to bear. So what I'm about to show you is just one example, one isolated example out of countless additional examples of wicked, abusive women who are still seen as the victim, even when they're beating the hell out of their man, their child, especially a boy child. They're everywhere. This stuff is everywhere. Women are as protected from being held responsible for their own evil actions as blacks are, and any of the LGBTQ and the troons are protected from the consequences of their own actions. We can see the psychology that's going on for us culturally by examining the linguistic default phrases that immediately pop to mind when we see these things. They show our psychological stance. And what happens, I see this all over the place. The first thing that comes to people's lips when they see a woman behaving wickedly, as we're about to see, is the phrase, she needs help. Why do so many people witnessing abusive behavior, even violent behavior, from a woman toward a man, why do they respond with, she needs help? I also saw, well, this looks like reactive abuse, so what did he do to make her do this? Would anyone say of a man who was caught on tape screaming and hitting his wife, he needs to be in the hospital getting help? Would that be the first thing they said, he needs help? No. The usual and correct reaction would be, he needs his kid taken away and he needs to be in jail. That's the correct response. It's also correct for women. But over and over, we see variations of she needs help. No, he needs help. Him, the male. The man being hit, who is not allowed culturally or legally to hit back or protect himself because he will go to jail. The little boy who is being screamed at, hipped, whipped with a belt. We showed you a mom doing that to her son about 2 months ago on here. He's the one who needs help, Males can be victims. Kind of shocking, isn't it? I need to repeat this. Men are not allowed to defend themselves and hit back when the assailant is a woman. They're not. Do you truly understand that? If you don't, take it in, please. Please try. It's real. Even men who restrain their physical strength when they respond to a violent woman so as not to seriously hurt or kill her, they are just as likely to end up being charged with assault and sent to jail. It's an impossible and very wicked bind for men. Could anything be more obvious? Is there any other clear abuser-victim situation where we immediately characterize the violent aggressor as the one who needs help? Is there any other abuser-victim dyad where we completely ignore the actual victim status of the true victim without even mentioning that there's a victim and immediately characterize the aggressor as being in need of help and assistance? Do we look at a driver, for example, who runs a red light and kills the driver that he T-bones? Do we say, he needs help? Do we see a 17-year-old boy who rapes a classmate and say, he needs help? Or do we actually extend our sympathy first to the girl that he violated? The answer is yes, that's what we do, because that's normal. But we do this constantly when women are the child beaters, the husband beaters, the extortionate liars, the statutory rapists of their own students, or false accusers. Society treats fully grown women as moral children who cannot be held responsible for their actions, their honesty, or their own choices. This is how and I'm not unique here, this happens to almost all kids who get taken out of the home. It's how I was labeled incorrigible and in need of supervision at 13 years old because I finally broke and I hit my mother to scare her badly enough to stop her attacking me. None of the prior 12 years worth of my mother's physical, verbal, and emotional abuse of me and my brother and sister, none of it was discussed in family court, wasn't even mentioned. Because my mother needed help from her violent and unstable son. What happened to me in family court at 13 plays out all day, everywhere in modern American society. Sorry, I've been taking too long to get to the example. Let me show you the meat of this. So the players here in this drama are Taylor Frankie Paul and her ex-husband. They both have stupid names. Her ex-husband, Dakota Mortensen. Dakota Mortensen videotaped this incident in 2023. Let's take a look at some of Taylor Frankie's recent publicity photos. Now, attention-paying, long-time disaffectants will begin making assumptions about this woman based on her grooming and the way she holds her facial muscles, and they will be correct. Let's look at the next one. Here we go. Here's an example. This is a headline from Variety. Taylor Frankie Paul speaks out after ABC polls The Bachelorette amid domestic violence investigation. Quote, too many women are suffering in silence. This bitch is on. I cannot stand it. According to, we're getting there. You're gonna get the video. I'm setting you up here. According to page 6, which I think is an outgrowth of the Daily Mail, I'm not quite sure, sort of online tabloid newspaper, they say, this is quote 100, Kevin. Taylor Frankie Paul's legal drama began in 2023 when she was arrested for alleged domestic violence after a fight with Mortensen. She was subsequently given misdemeanor charges of assault, criminal mischief, and commission of domestic violence in the presence of a child. The charges were later dropped. Well, naturally, she's a woman. How bad could it have been? Yeah, I know. Some of you are chafing at the bit and you're saying, well, what did he do? I'll bet he did this or this or this. Probably not many of you, but there may be a few. And if you are so chafing, it's because you too do not want women to be held responsible for their actions. And you don't really believe there's a category called abusive women. Now, it may turn out that her ex-husband, Mr. Mortensen, was up to some abusive behavior too. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, at the very least, he picked her, and stable, healthy people do not pick women like this. And stable, healthy women do not pick abusive men. It's just, here's the other thing. This drives me absolutely crazy about true crime shows. And yeah, I mean, I have chick taste in entertainment, so I do watch a lot of true crime. But they always make it seem this could happen to anybody. No, that's not true. It was never true. It happens to young men and young women who were brought up in neglectful, dysfunctional homes who don't know how to pick a mate. It happens to it is it happens, but it is uncommon and unusual for a well-formed, stable young lady or young gentleman to go out and pick a spouse who turns out to be an abusive borderline. That's usually something that people like me do, kids who come from abusive homes. So, you know, if evidence comes out that her ex-husband abused her too, then I will comment on that too. But so far, we don't have that evidence. And frankly, I resent feeling compelled to say what I just said. And I do feel compelled to say it. I do have to anticipate that objection. I would not have to do that if there were allegations against the man. And everyone knows that. Everyone knows that's true. We don't react to videotape of abusive men by saying, well, what did she do? Sure, some guys will say that. But that's not our default reaction. That only happens for the girls. So let's take a look at Taylor Frankie Paul's domestic behavior behind closed doors. And remember that at least one of her children was present for this incident.
Yeah, yeah, look at you. Look. Yeah, look. This is called physical abuse. Yeah. Yeah. See, Taylor, this is all you do. It's the only thing you know how to do. Holy shit.
It's okay. I don't give a f.
Let me go. Stop. Dude, leave me alone. Oh my gosh. Your daughter is right here. Oh my gosh. Oh my.
Thank God he had his phone out. But she needs help, right? Right? Well, Taylor Frankie Paul thinks she needs help. Here are some of her public statements. She wants you to know that it is she who is the victim of domestic violence and she who is suffering in silence. This is quote 120, Kevin. She went on Good Morning America on Wednesday to promote the ABC series and compared the investigation into the alleged, listen, I'm sorry, I have to cut in, alleged domestic abuse. It's right there on tape. She compared the investigation into the latest alleged domestic abuse incident. She called it the end of the world. Quote from Taylor, "It's hard to see past this. I'm not going to lie. In this moment, it's just so heavy," she told host Laura Spencer. Next quote, "When your life is broadcasted out there in the headlines, it's like the end of the world. That's what it feels like. I'm not going to lie. I will say I've been here before and I got through it and I've shared my story and my light, and I'm hoping I can do that again." Love and light, Taylor. Love and light. Eat, pray, freak out. Here's her publicist. Next quote. A spokesperson for Taylor Frankie Paul told People magazine, "It's sad to see the latest installment of his never-ending, desperate, attention-seeking, destructive campaign to harm Taylor without any regard for the consequences for their child." It was Taylor who was throwing metal chairs while her child was sitting there. "Releasing an old video which conveniently omits context on their son's birthday is a reprehensible attempt to distract from his own behavior. Thankfully, the public has seen this act before and knows who he is, and sadly, many people will recognize this pattern of manipulation, both in his actions and on the show from their own experiences." Good God Almighty, this is sick-making. Total moral reversal. I'm surprised, but I'm glad that ABC actually recognized that this behavior is unacceptable and that Taylor Frankie Paul, what a stupid name, lost her star turn on The Bachelorette. But she may well pull ahead and become seen by the public as the tearful victim in the end. It has happened before. When we are reflexively inclined to look at a violent, abusive bitch like this and say that she needs help, you can't count on anything. The people who actually need help in domestic violence situations are the spouse and the children being abused, regardless of their sex. The actual victims of abuse are the ones who need help. And this phrase, she needs help, I know, it may come off as a small turn of phrase that I shouldn't get hung up on. Some people may think I'm inflating a molehill into a mountain. I'm not. These small tells reveal what we really think underneath. All right, after the break, we're going to come back into Potpourri du Moquerie, and then I'm going to lay some boomer bait on you, so come and get it. If you've been waiting to book a 1-hour private video coaching and consulting session with me, now is a great time. I am still running my Take a Break tax season special offer. I've lowered my rate temporarily from $125 an hour to $75 an hour because we're all facing the IRS and I wanted to give you guys a little break. Well, it's brought some of you out of the woodwork, and I've met some people who watch the show who wanted to have some conversation. Very nice to meet you, but it does mean that my calendar is filling up. I'm going to run this sale for at least one more week. Go to joshuaslocum.net. You know, obviously, that I specialize in helping people think through family, work, church, academic situations where there are cluster B dynamics going on, narcissism and manipulation. But I'm also there as a sounding board if you need somebody to talk to about politics and cultural trends and you can't talk in your own family. Do you have a family like Jerry O'Connell's? Are your women going to beat on you if you make a joke and you don't say you hate Donald Trump? Well, give me a call. Book on joshuaslocum.net and you will see as it asks you to select a service from me, just go down the menu and click the $75 tax season special offer.
There's one pet I like to pet, and every evening we get set. I stroke it every chance I get. It's my girl's pussy. Seldom plays and never purrs, and I love the thoughts it stirs. But I don't mind because it's hers, my girl's pussy. Often it goes out at night, returns at break of dawn. No matter what the weather's like, it's always nice and warm. It's never dirty, always clean, in giving thrills, never mean. But it's the best I've ever seen, is my girl's pussy.
Welcome to Potpourri du Moquerie, and that was 1931 band leader Harry Roy. I checked, this is real, is not AI. And when you say in a français, it is la chatte de ma petite amie. Always nice and warm. All right, don't make me listen to it anymore. I love stuff. I just love shit like that. I absolutely love it, especially because we think that people weren't dirty in olden days, but they totally were. All right, next up, we have a trans attorney, a trans man, throwing a tantrum in front of a judge. But, you know, here is an example of how women can actually become men, and you'd never know it. The illusion is stunning.
Or maybe because I'm a transgender attorney practicing all over the state.
I don't know what you are.
You do, ma'am.
You were entirely inappropriate.
You were yelling at me, and I did not even know you were the judge.
You didn't even go to this school.
There knows on my face that this woman will not appear before this court because she has a warrant or stealing.
Objection, hearsay. That's not true. I mean, it's still. Get out of my face, sir. Get out of my face, sir.
You may step
Get
back.
out of my face.
You should leave this county.
Get out of my face.
These people are my friends, and you're being ugly.
Because you're in direct contempt of court.
No, I'm not being. You did not even say that I was in
You are
contempt.
in direct.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm
That's
not.
my stuff.
But I felt very threatened by this person.
Do not hurt me. Do not hurt me.
Hands on your back.
Do not. You're throwing me over this.
Stop resisting.
I'm not resisting. You know exactly what's happening. I'm being thrown down. You're hurting me. You're hurting me. You're resisting me. You're suffocating. You're suffocating. I can't breathe. 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 Somebody go on out and run. Please. Please. I don't get a female officer now. Get a female officer now. Get a female officer now. There aren't any. I can't get on my kid's feet. He just threw my glasses. I can't see. Give me my glasses. I cannot see. I cannot see. I'm not trying to walk and I cannot see.
Did you catch that? Get a female officer now. Why? I thought you were a man. Biff. Yes, that was borderline personality disorder, obviously. Now, I've mixed up my notes. I want to give a shout out to a viewer and friend of the show, and I can't remember which of these funnies you made sure I saw, but you made sure I saw one of them. So thanks to Pastor Tie-Dye. Appreciate it. Next up, we have, again, this guy, this actor, why is he in everything? Why is he on every red carpet? Why do they keep trying to make him happen? He's not even good looking, and he's greasy. This is his latest appearance, Pedro Pascal.
And the couple straight ahead is going, oh, looking beautiful. Pedro, straight ahead, Pedro, please.
He's adjusting his panty girdle. Okay, that's Jack Tripper and Mrs. Roper's Fascinator, and he's about to float away in a caftan. Whoever this chick is who does these parodies, I need to find out because I need to consume all of her content. Here she is on how Gen Z girls talk.
Hey, good morning. How's your weekend? It was tea. It was giving free time. It was giving like 2 days off work. Yeah, I went on a hike with an old friend. Ooh, not the old friend. What? You're friends with an old person? No, like someone I've known for a while. Oh, that's not... Wait, how old are you again? I'm 28. No, because the way I thought you were literally like 25. Wait, your skincare is eating down. Oh, thanks. Do you have everything ready for the 11 a.m. meeting? Oh, no, sorry. I've been so overstimmy this morning. I've been watching a ton of TikTok AI videos of Alex Earl and Victoria Paris boxing each other, so yeah. I don't know who those people are, sorry. That part. Yeah, I guess it's fine. Kevin probably won't even remember we have a meeting. Clock it. Yeah. You want to have lunch together? Yes, I brought my new hyperfixation meal, hard-boiled eggs with buffalo sauce.
Who among us has not met that girl? It was giving 2 days off from work. You know, you guys, have you hear that? Do you know where that patois comes from? When you hear these kids saying, it's giving this, it's serving this, that's from 1980s and 1990s drag queen culture. Literally. That is straight out of black drag ballrooms in Harlem. You saw this stuff in... I first heard this way of talking in that movie about the drag ballrooms, Paris is Burning. All right. Buckle up, boomers and Gen Xers, because I'm going to serve you up some nostalgia bait. This is an unapologetically romantic trip down memory lane. So stop at the concession booth and pick up your complimentary rose-colored glasses and do not be shy. These are 5 things that I want back from the 20th century. Generation X, my generation, was born between 1965 and 1980. We are the last generation who experienced the real physical world the way most humans have experienced it. We came along when generational transitions were gradual and there was overlap. So we knew our boomer parents' music and movie stars, and we knew our silent generation grandparents' music and movie stars. Compare that to today. Starting with millennials, but it's much more now with Gen Z, a chasm has opened up between generations. It's not a ramp, it's dead space. People a generation younger I have so messed up my writing here. Don't worry, I'm going to fix it. We don't have to cut or anything, but I don't even understand what I wrote here. What's wrong with me? When I was younger, you were aware of the culture, the movies, the way that people lived in your parents' and grandparents' generation, and you would ask about them. You'd find it interesting. Yeah, you might make fun of it a little bit, but you were genuinely interested. But with Gen Z, it's entirely different. They were given really digital poison in the form of smartphones. They were given these in their tender and formative years. And because of that, the entire cultural landscape has fragmented into a billion bespoke Balkan states. As a kid, I knew who the Andrews sisters were, and I could sing along with their songs because my grandmother and other people her age knew who they were and played their records. But today, the average Gen Z kid has no idea at all who Michael Jackson, Madonna, or Lucille Ball were. None at all. No idea. It's hard to convince young people, too, that some of the technologies from the bad old world of analog were actually superior in some ways to what we have today. They don't believe that phone calls on copper wire were actually clear and that they never dropped and that nobody ever said, "Can you hear me now?" But it is true. That is true. Hilariously, they also think that film photography was like super blurry and like, like photographs on film. Well, if they knew what Impressionist painters were, they would say that they looked like Impressionist paintings. They think that nothing actually worked really well before the smartphone came along. Well, some of these old things were actually better, and I want them back. First thing, now, a little more setup. I trained as a photographer in college, and that was going to be my career. And then digital came along. But I was in romantic love with the hands-on craft that was film photography, darkroom work, and hand retouching. When computers took over, I packed up all of my equipment because I was in love with silver gelatin emulsions, not silicon chips. I had no interest in having yet more computer time in my fine art working hours. But the loss of Kodachrome color slide film was the absolute worst. I actually cried real tears when Kodak pulled the plug. There was no color film in history that reproduced color as well as Kodachrome did. There's a reason why Paul Simon wrote that song about the nice bright colors. He was right. That's what Kodachrome looked like. Kodachrome was actually a black and white film. There were no color dyes in it. Most other films had built-in dyes or dye precursors, not Kodachrome. It was black and white film. So it worked by capturing the blue, red, and green light from a scene on 3 sandwiched black and white layers, one sensitive to red, one blue, one sensitive to green. The color dyes were actually added during the wet chemical process, and they migrated to the correct complementary layer in the film. And those dyes were more saturated and richer and more time-stable and archival than what could be found in what's called chromogenic color film with the dyes already built into it. That's why a Kodachrome slide from the 1940s looks like a high quality photograph that could have been taken yesterday. There's no fading and none of those washed out pastel colors that you often see in the old color prints in your family photo album. And Kodachrome was also the sharpest film with the highest resolution. Up until digital took over, National Geographic magazine, which is considered correctly, was considered the world standard for high quality magazine photography. You were required as a photographer to use Kodachrome. They would not accept any other film. There was a reason for that. Do you you know what Kodachrome looks like if you can recall the most famous cover of National Geographic? That beautiful young girl from Afghanistan. She had a sort of a cloth on her head. She had those bright green eyes, and she was looking directly into the camera. That was Kodachrome. That's what Kodachrome looks like. But it was so sharp that a scene captured on Kodachrome reproduced in such fine, sharp detail that looking at a projected slide was almost like looking at a window to a real scene. If you have never, if you've never had the pleasure of looking at a high quality color slide projected in a dark room, do it. It's nothing like this. It's so much richer. But because what I'm going to show you, you're seeing on a TV or a computer screen, you and I can't actually see what these slides really look like because it's been mediated by an electronic screen and a color profile and various different pieces of software. But you can still see the rich color and fine detail in a good scan that no other film could achieve. Check this out. This is a photograph from the 40s or the 50s. And it shows a couple of, they appear to be Mennonite women, perhaps, at a gas station, 29 cents a gallon. Looks like a Chevrolet. Look at that photograph and tell me that doesn't look like it could have been taken yesterday on the set of a period piece. It looks vibrant, rich, sharply detailed. It looks like real life. This stuff was beautiful. Well, staying on film, let's talk about the motion picture analog. People today, we talk about bright hues looking like Technicolor, we say, but a lot of people don't understand what that really means. It means something specific. For decades in Hollywood, I think from the late 30s until about the early 70s, the patented Technicolor film process reigned supreme. It was different from every other film technology. Motion pictures that were shot in Technicolor were brighter and more vivid than any other films. They made real life look like the Land of Oz. That was the gimmick. The Wizard of Oz was in some way, the 1939 The Wizard of Oz was in some ways the biggest commercial for the Technicolor process that they could ever have bought. It was shot in Technicolor. When Dorothy steps out of her house after the tornado, she's in sepia black and white, and all of a sudden this rich candy land comes out. That was showing off Technicolor. That quality came at a price. Like Kodachrome, still film, Technicolor used actual black and white film. It didn't have dyes built in. They added these stable, rich dyes later during the printing process when they were striking a print. This made, so it was, the shooting process for Technicolor was difficult and cumbersome. The film was slow, and what that means is it wasn't that sensitive to light, slow film and fast film. It required so much light on set that actors sometimes got eye damage and they all sweat their asses off. I mean, it was incredibly bright and hot. Technicolor cameras ran 3 strips of motion picture film through the camera simultaneously, 3 strips of black and white film. And there was something called a beam splitter, a prism that split the light into red, green, and blue color records onto those 3 pieces of film. And the cameras were so heavy that they were so loud and heavy, they needed to be sound baffled on set. They were like this big, like huge monstrosities, and they had to have all this baffling and soundproofing around them. And striking the final print for theater projection required really precision machining that could line up each of these 3 strips of film in exactly perfect registration so that the image would be sharp and not blurry as you laid down the cyan, yellow, and magenta dyes onto a clear strip of matrix film. It cost time, it cost skill, and it cost a lot of money, and that's why the process was abandoned when cheaper, easier, all-in-one color motion picture stock became available. But nothing really ever equaled Technicolor. And that's why the Technicolor process was so beloved that songs were written about it. Some of you may recognize this one. We'll show a little bit from the Technicolor motion picture production, Silk Stockings. This is Janice Page singing to Fred Astaire.
Today, to get the public to attend a picture show, it's not enough to advertise a famous star they know. If you want to get the crowds to come around, you gotta have glorious Technicolor, breathtaking cinemascope, and stereophonic sound. If folks today could witness Valentino in the Chic, they never would appreciate
that's enough to give the flavor. If you want to hear applauding hands, and yes, that is, you're looking at Technicolor. That bright green wasn't reproduced that well on any other film. This is when going to the movies was actually magical. I believe it was 1997 when the studio re-released Gone with the Wind. That was also a 1939 movie. And they re-released it in Technicolor. It was shot in Technicolor, but they actually made new Technicolor prints. And this was, you'd get a piece of blank see-through film, and it was covered with a very thin layer of gelatin, clear gelatin. And that was the medium that absorbed that struck down cyan, yellow, and magenta picture of the image of the picture. It was glorious color, but sadly, it was soft and fuzzy looking because they didn't have it in perfect registration. So the re-release of Gone with the Wind was a little bit disappointing. I want air-cooled VW engines back. Let me tell you a story. In 1978, I went outside to play outside the house, and my stepfather, you're seeing this car here. This is a 67 VW Beetle. That's not ours, but that was the exact, that was our family car when I was a little kid. So my stepfather was standing behind the car, kneeling at the engine, cranking things and saying, "God damn son of a bitch," cussing it up a blue streak. The engine kept cranking and cranking and cranking, but wouldn't catch and fire. And he was trying to gap the points in the distributor, and he was never really good at that job. I learned to do it decades later on a 67 beige-colored VW Bug. I was taught by a classic butch lesbian. They don't make them anymore. It really didn't seem that hard to me. But my stepfather was doing this because that's what normal people did in those days. You tuned up your own car. Most dads had a tool set and the know-how to do basic car maintenance at home. Repairs were less expensive, and you didn't have to have a computer technician scan the computer in your engine to figure out what the bloody sensors believed were wrong. Now, of course, yes, the old VWs were very basic and very simple, and they had very few features. The heaters were so bad that winter driving required an ice scraper for the inside of the windscreen. The defroster didn't work for shit. And these cars were tiny compared to modern cars, but you could get a surprising amount in if you were clever about how you stacked it up. And yeah, they were really light, and some people called them death traps, but that was an advantage. For example, my mother had a red and gray primer colored VW Beetle also when I was really young, and she got stuck in a ditch in the snow in upstate New York, and 4 boys from the local fraternity got on all 4 corners of the Bug, picked it up, and put my mom back on the road. So that was kind of handy. I would give anything to hear that musical metallic tinkle from the exhaust pipes on the road today. I miss it. Sticking with cars, here's a kind of if you know, you know. America never built a more durable engine than the famous Chrysler slant 6-cylinder. That engine got its name, excuse me, because the designers tilted it 30 degrees underneath the hood so that it would fit under the lower and sleeker hood lines that got fashionable in the early 1960s. Excuse me. Now, the Slant 6, the 6-cylinder, didn't have the raw horsepower of a big block V8, but it produced a surprising amount of oomph for its size, especially if you tuned it right. And this was the engine that never died, ever, never died. If you've owned one, you know that's true. And you can also hear that sewing machine purr tick sound in your mind. It's a really sweet sound. We've got a little sample of it for you. Music to my ears. We had two slant six powered cars growing up. We had a 69 Dodge Dart, white four-door, and then we had a 78 Dodge Aspen station wagon. And as an adult, I had fallen in love with these because that's what I learned basic car maintenance on, the slant six. And as an adult, I've owned a 75 Dodge Dart, paid $500 for it from a farmer in rural Virginia. And the sign on it said, $500, and in all caps, air conditioning works, and it sure did. And then I had a 1966 navy blue Plymouth Belvedere with the 225 slant six in it. And there's no better way to spend an afternoon than adjusting the valve lash on a slant six while it's running. You got to do it running and hot. So you're putting these feeler gauges in as these tappets are going tick, 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 tick. It's really fun. I miss how easy it was to work on engines in those days when you could move around under the hood and adjust something without taking off 15 components just so that you had enough room to get your finger into the engine bay. So there will be slant six engines running in good health long after I'm dead, just as God intended. Now, the last of the 5 things I want back is a social technology called customer service. Customer service is a social technology that needs to make a comeback. My first jobs as a teenager were running the cash register at a Wegmans grocery store and bringing burgers to tables at a big boy restaurant. Friendly, efficient customer service was mandatory in the workforce in those days. It was expected by every customer. It was expected and enforced by every employer. You were to greet customers with a friendly hello and an offer to help them. Smiles were either compulsory or strongly encouraged. If the customer needed help finding an item in the store, you needed to walk with them and find it for them by walking them over to the aisle. That was just standard behavior. What do you get today when you walk into most retail stores? Well, you get dead-eyed, silent stares from any staff who are younger than 35 or 40 years old. If you need to find a pipe fitting in a big store like Lowe's, well, try asking. You're going to get, if we had any, they'd be over there. I'm sorry, that wasn't very accurate. I actually made eye contact with you. That would never happen. Surprisingly, a young clerk, a Gen Z clerk at my local McDonald's reminded me of the good old days of customer service last week. Like so many places, McDonald's is making its business hostile to humans. In addition to the ugly, gray, brutalist, updated architecture, the lobbies are crammed with touchscreen kiosks while they have cut out all of the staffed registers down to 1 or 2 maximum 2. They are designing deliberately in a hostile way to steer you away from asking to interact with staff. As recently as 15 years ago, of the fast food chains, McDonald's had a widespread reputation for employing staff who were neater, tidier, better groomed, and friendlier than the competition. People used to remark on it. Not now. That's all gone. Except for this one young man at my local McDonald's. The one in Berlin, Vermont. I walked past the kiosks and up to the register because I'm a glutton for punishment. I was expecting to be ignored for at least 5 minutes, as is now McDonald's standard. You can have 6 people back there. They will see you. They won't make eye contact. They will ignore you. They will. I'll call him Jeff. He was about 22. His hair was combed. His shirt was tucked in. He smiled at me and he said, "Welcome to McDonald's. How are you today?" I almost cried. And he meant it. He was looking me in the eye. I was so pleasantly surprised I thought I was dreaming. I probably made a fool out of myself because when he was done and he gave me my order, I made a point to thank him for being a human and being polite. The other day, I saw this old late 70s or early 80s commercial for McDonald's Shamrock Shake when it was new. If you are 40 or under, you probably think that the chipper and upbeat tone that you're going to hear in this commercial was fake. You may not believe that anyone ever acted that way, and you might even find this level of cheer cringe. Take a look.
'Tis the first green of spring. Celebrate with Minty Shamrock Shakes and new Minty Shamrock Sundaes right now at McDonald's.
Nobody celebrates the season like we can. With Shamrock Shakes and Sundays make it feel so grand.
Minty Frosty Fix Shamrock Shakes and new Shamrock Sundaes with mint-flavored topping get everybody in the spirit.
Your Irish eyes are smiling no matter who you are. Nobody can do it like McDonald's can.
It was like that. It was, and I want it back. All right. That's the show. Do not forget to join us for our live stream this coming Thursday, March 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Rumble, and X. But before I sign off, this is the time where I ask you to get your wallets out, because it's time to put your money where my mouth is. If you like the show and you want to help produce the show, we would love to have you as a monthly supporting member. You can sign up for a very low price at disaffectedpod.substack.com, and you can give more if you want. We have founding memberships on there where you can voluntarily pay more if you just love us that much, but you can start out small too. You can also go to subscribestar.com/disaffected. You get the same content and the money comes to us too. And if you don't want another subscription, look underneath this video, look in the description. I've got a live link for one-off donations, or just remember our website, disaffected.com, and click on Support Us. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next week.